COVID has prevented Japan's Prime Minister from signing today's landmark defence pact in person with Scott Morrison. However, the two leaders are this afternoon signing the Reciprocal Access Agreement between Australia and Japan in a virtual meeting. Joining me live is the Senior Analyst for the Australian Strategic Policy Institute, Dr. Malcolm Davis. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
How very 2022 of the Prime Minister. This signing has been described as a pivotal moment for the region, of course, for Australian-Japan relations. Firstly, what does it mean and why is this such a momentous deal?
Look, I think it's a really important deal at a technical level. What it does is enable Australia and Japan to deploy their military forces from each other's facilities to operate more easily, so we can deploy our Navy and our Air Force to Japan to operate from their bases and air bases, and likewise Japan can operate their forces from our facilities. So at the technical level, it's very, an important step forward. But at the strategic level, I think what it signifies is much closer defence relations between Tokyo and Canberra. And it strengthens Japan's role in the region quite dramatically compared to in the past, where Japan was limited by its post-war constitution, particularly Article 9, in terms of its inability to use force in like a traditional defence power. This agreement once again reinforces the sense that Japan is becoming a normal defence power. And I think that's really important given the strategic context that we are in, which is of a challenge from a rising China. So Japan and Australia are working together much more closely with this agreement to deter and respond to a rising China.
This is the only deal of its kind that Japan has signed with another country. Why is this particular deal even more significant than other bilateral agreements?
Because, as I said, it is a significant deal in the sense that Japan is breaking away from its post-war constitutional constraints on the use of military force, because I think Tokyo recognises the challenges that is facing it from China. There is a territorial dispute between China and Japan over the Japanese territory of the Senkaku Islands, which China is trying to claim as its own, and more broadly over the East China Sea. But more significantly, I think there's a growing concern that China will make a move against Taiwan sometime in the next few years. And Japan, I think, is recognising the importance of establishing firm defence partnerships, starting with Australia, but also with the United States. There's a trilateral relationship that is emerging that is really critical. And the aim here is to deter China from acting against Taiwan or acting in the South China Sea. And one of the ways that can be achieved is through strengthening partnerships, and the Reciprocal Access Agreement is part of that.
So what does Australia stand to gain from this deal?
Well, importantly, closer defence relations with Japan, not just in terms of reciprocal basing agreements, but the ability to train together in terms of joint operations and coalition operations. That's going to improve our operational effectiveness. The potential for sharing of intelligence. Japan is not a member of the Five Eyes, but I think this agreement could bring that outcome a bit closer. And ultimately down the track, the potential for Japan and Australia to work together on some new military projects, some new capabilities, perhaps in critical and emerging technologies. So, these agreements are important because they strengthen that critical defence relationship between important partners. And we gain an awful lot, both in the short term through interoperability, but also in the longer term in terms of strategic partnership.
We know China is not happy with Australia's alliance between the UK and the US, also known as the AUKUS partnership. What are we expecting the reaction from China in relation to this particular deal?
Well, they won't like it, but frankly, we make our own defence policy to meet our own needs, not to please Beijing. So, yes, they will be unhappy about this. They will probably engage in some wolf warrior diplomacy, they'll castigate us from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. They're very good at doing that, but it's very ineffective because all it does is create tension and create blowback against their own posture and their own actions in the region. So China won't like it. I don't expect them to take any concrete actions beyond some terse statements in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. But we're doing this irrespective of China's concerns.
Dr. Malcolm Davis, we appreciate your time this afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us.